Welcome to Interface. Today we have an eminent scholar and researcher from biomedical engineering field, Dr. Kumar Rajamani. He is presently with Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions, Bangalore. Prior to that, he was with GE and Philips, and he has also got a academic exposure at Amrita University as a chairman and head of the Department of Information Technology. And he did his doctoral program at University of Bern at Switzerland in biomedical engineering, and he also associated with IAC for a long time in research as research assistant, and his main area of research are biomedical imaging, algorithms, and image registration, and lot many. He got lots of publications and patents in this field. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, what are the major research areas you have worked on in the field of biomedical engineering?
Currently, I am working on diabetic retinopathy, which is a protocol to screen people who have prolonged diabetes, whether it is affecting their eyes. And we have at Robert Bosch built a camera which can take pictures of the posterior part of the eye, which is called the retina, and we have mechanisms and algorithms to find out if the diabetes a person has started affecting the eye, and automatically classify a person as being diseased or not diseased, and if he is having disease, where in the eye are the potential disease location. This is the current activity for the past 2 years I have been involved with, and prior to this I have worked on areas of oncology quantification, where we try to look at cancer and how does a cancer growth happen, and can you bring some metrics on an image. This is using magnetic resonance imaging, and we use 4D imaging along 3D for the image and 4D along the time, and we try to quantify images telling where are the cancer regions. I also had the opportunity to be part of academics briefly at Amrita University, and that time I was working on haptics and vocational training using haptics, and a brief exposure in medtech area, which is medical technologies, when I was in Philips. So globally, all my experience has been in the healthcare and biomedical engineering domain.
Engineering and medicine are now increasingly in a indivisible mode, and of course this biomedical engineering is the forefront of this shift now. So how will you analyze in a global perspective this point?
That's a very interesting observation, that biomedical engineering is a interdisciplinary activity which kinds of brings in engineering disciplines, biology disciplines from sciences, and also fundamental principles from maths, physics, and chemistry all together to come up with a solution for either the clinical person like a clinician, or for the patient to get better outcomes out of him. So biomedical engineering is indeed, as you rightly said, one of the forefronts in this interdisciplinary activity, and globally we have seen a lot of attention happening for biomedical engineering, right from innovations which are happening to build the next generation of devices which can take photographs inside the body, to understanding of how the chemicals function in our body. Those are the life sciences kind of activity, to also simple activities in terms of monitoring how our body is functioning, which are the vitals. So how do you monitor your ECG, how do you monitor your heart rate, how do you monitor your brain impulses, how do you monitor your sleep. So there's a lot of activity happening in this whole biomedical arena, in a way that you can say the whole human body is now analyzed for signals. And globally, if you analyze this, it is possibly a couple of decades that companies and academic institutions are actively pursuing research in this area. A lot of outcomes have come where we are today. As we compare back to a decade back, we have made progresses in leaps and bounds, to the extent that there are targeted therapies which can be produced, high resolution images which can be done, and patient care has gone to a next level of capability that we can give very good assistance to the doctor and also to the patient.
So it is fair to say that without this medical engineering inventions, we cannot have a good clinical interventions all the time. So how will you analyze this in a Indian perspective?
Okay. Yes, as you rightly said, one cannot now imagine a clinical intervention without the assistance of technology, and technology and medicine are kind of integrated or coupled very tightly, and this has the coupling effect would continue to increase, and the dependence on technology by both the clinical person and also by the patient is going to only increase as we go further and further ahead in the future. Regarding your question about what do we see as gaps in the Indian scenario versus the global perspective, we are currently doing reasonably well in building algorithms, and India as a location for intellectual capabilities for building algorithms is known globally and recognized globally, and people including multinational companies look at Indian scenario for building the next generation of algorithms. The same breath one has to say that we have not got enough attention also in the hardware. The reason being, we are not yet a destination for hardware innovations, especially so in the medical arena, and that has caused a lot of gap in the outcomes that we see in hardware and hardware for medical coming out of the Indian market. Algorithms, we are good, but that also could be improved by focusing a little more research and R&D, research and development activity in the algorithm front also.
So hardware, softwares and algorithms, you have mentioned three things. So Indians are good in algorithms, they are building, they are experts in that, we have resources on that, but hardware side we are lacking in that. So what is the major reason behind this, and what is the solutions you put forward for that?
Exactly. So we are great when it comes to building analytical solutions for algorithms, and the investment needed for software or algorithm work is not immense. What it takes to start a research or an R&D activity in algorithm primarily is a good computer with a very nice internet connection, a high-speed internet connection, and access to resources like journals and conferences, and one can get started from there. And this infrastructure is building up in a very good way in India. We have very good connectivity as we see these days. We have very good access to high-end computing, and we have intellectual capabilities to build the algorithms. The gap in hardware though is that it needs investments from the country, from the government organization to focus more on building the hardware, and also support from the regulatory to say what hardwares can be launched into the market. And these two fronts are currently lacking behind, because we don't have, it is changing now. We have this Make in India paradigm where we want to start making hardware in India, and we also have the interest to also build the hardware indigenously within India itself. These will change the pattern in the years to come. In the next 5 to 10 years, we would see more hardwares and biomedical products coming from India, and these hardwares will also have softwares and solutions, algorithms which we write ourselves. Hence, the cost would naturally come down. If you build solutions of both hardware, algorithms and software in-house, the solutions which we finally offer to a doctor or for the patient would be very competitive and very less, which is affordable. And that would be the right outlook which should be looked for, where we can build the hardware and software and algorithms within the same organization or an entity.
From Röntgen's invention of X-rays from long back, that is the first Nobel Prize in physics. Now we are into MRIs and different modalities. So you have mentioned about the hardwares also. So what are the major modalities in biomedical engineering?
That's a very interesting question, and one can broadly classify the modalities as 2D, 3D, in the space that 2D would come the usage of X-rays, the usage of ultrasound, and 3D would come all the modalities like computer tomography, which is CT, magnetic resonance imaging, which is MRI, and we also have modalities like PET, positron emission tomography, and SPECT, single photon emission computer tomography. These are majorly the domains of 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional imaging, and the recent discoveries have moved more from just anatomy understanding to functional understanding. So we not only talk about what does the shape look like or what does the organ look like, we also look into what is the function, how does it happen. And so this is more time involved into it. So it is 4-dimensional imaging. And how does an anatomy react when you think of an object or when you eat an object. And these are functional imaging of the brain, which is called fMRI. These are also actively being studied. And one of the earlier experience I was mentioning, we also look at activity of a tumor or a cancer and say, how does it behave when there is in the presence of glucose which comes into the body? How does it behave when there is a dye which is injected into the body? So there are multiple studies done to get the anatomical and functional imaging. But this is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is that there is increased interest in analyzing every signal from the body. And when I mean every signal, I mean literally every organ. So starting from the top, if you want to get the brain signals, people are doing EEG, EMG to get the brain signals. And then coming down to the heart, people want to get the ECGs to find out, or phonocardiograms to find out what is the heart signals. Then people are trying out what is the signal when one sleeps. So they take examples of are you getting proper sleep, REM sleep. So analyze the sleep patterns to understand sleep disorders. Then they also study what is the gastric signals. So you can take signals from the stomach. Then you have signals taking out from the soft tissues, muscles that you want. And in fact, to that extent, now people are even looking at the heat signals that a body is emitting. You don't have to have any contact. You can even look at the radiation that a body is emitting and then come up with analysis telling where is a body which can have a problem, or which is the anatomy which can have a problem. And heat is more like thermal imaging that they do, and that is also a signal, for example. So these are more the newer modalities which are coming through, which looks at more signals coming out from the various parts of the body, and these are utilized to come up with what are the possible disease which could be manifested or which could be predicted much upfront, and they are also non-invasive as compared to CT, which is harmful in terms of radiation. These newer modalities are non-invasive and can be captured with few sensors attached to the body.
So you have mentioned it in a very clear manner and different modalities, but this can be used for diagnosis purpose very well. But how this can be extended to curing a disease?
That's actually a very good perspective that you've got. Are these modalities or the technology that we are building only used for discovering a disease or identifying a disease? Can they also be used for treating? And that is exactly where biomedical engineering is heading towards. The forefront of biomedical engineering now is looking at modalities which can also cure as they determine. So for a few examples related to this, the same magnetic resonance imaging can be used, a focused magnetic energy can be used to also heat up a place, or a focused ultrasound can be used to burn a tissue. So ultrasound we know is more just to see whether a given anatomy is functioning well or how the anatomy looks like. So structurally we know what is the anatomy, functionally we know how is it working. But if you focus that same ultrasound, you can also burn a tissue. And suppose you say there is a particular tissue which is not working well, the same ultrasound in a focused mode can be used to burn that. Same holds good for laser ablated treatments. Laser can be used for getting an anatomy. A simple area is laser used for screening the eye. You get a picture of the retina, which is called optical coherence OCT, optical coherence tomography. The same laser can be used to burn certain regions in the retina when it is not functioning well, or there are regions which are diseased. You can use it for burning out those regions. So same modality, people want to use it for diagnosis and extend it to treat. And the forefront of this is combining technologies. One which gives it anatomical information, other which does treatment. So you could use MRI to find out which is the anatomy, how is it functioning, and ultrasound to burn if it is something is wrong. So MRI, ultrasound, combined technology. Then multimodal technologies are now in the forefront where they use to diagnose and treat. And the other arena where we see treatment coming into place is also for these signals. When you say you find out a phonocardiogram or say a heart signal which is not functioning fine, we look at other equipments which can aid the person in getting the patterns right. So this includes like implantable devices like pacemakers which are put into the heart so that the action of the heart becomes better. those are kind of decoupled, but we also see a lot of coupled imaging plus treating, diagnosing plus treating as the next forefront of technologies which are coming up in biomedical engineering.
Okay, for diagnosis and for therapy, we are using these modalities. So, what is the acceptance of the medical professionals?
That is a $1 million question to say whether technology which doctors build will, the technologies which engineers build, will doctors use it? Increasingly, we have seen that doctors were initially hesitant to learn one more newer area of technology. Doctors spend 5 to 7 years to get their basic degree, then they have to do a specialization to do an MD, then they have to do a super specialization, and then when technologists come back and say you have to learn one more area, you have to learn how to use a computer, how to use interfaces like touch, how to trigger an algorithm, how to analyze an algorithm. They become increasingly difficult to say that we don't want any new learnings. But the scenario is changing because over time doctors have realized that if they use technology, they can perform better. They can bring better outcomes to patients. They can bring better results of a surgery. They can solve the difficult scenarios easily. And experience is no longer the main thing, right? Earlier, if you take a decade or 2 decades back, a doctor is good if he has done 100 surgeries. But now the same can be simulated, the same can be done in a lab, in a computer. You get the experience there, and you don't really have to go and practice it on a rat or on an animal, and you still get the same level of experience and support. So if you lack in experience, computer supports you. To get you the experience, computer supports you. To evaluate your performance, computer supports you. When I mean computer technology, I mean. So this whole biomedical arena supports a doctor to increase his outcome and makes it more effective. And hence the younger doctors who are more receptive are more encouraging to build these technologies, to that extent that recent doctors now participate actively with engineers. There is a program called immersive program where engineers spend time in a hospital, spend time to learn what are the problems. This is called need identification, and then when they identify needs, go back and build the solution along with the doctor to find out what engineering solutions can be built for biomedical solutions.
So, what are the academic programs that we have once if one need to get into the biomedical career?
Okay, that is a long-winded story. There are a lot of opportunities which are building up in many academic institutions. The basic of those are bachelor courses in biomedical engineering, and there are higher master's courses like MS programs and MTech programs in biomedical engineering. But as I have seen in my experience in the last decade or so, it is becoming increasingly difficult just to have a bachelor's degree and getting a career out of a biomedical engineering program. And the difficulty being that, as you rightly said in the beginning, it is an interdisciplinary program and it needs specialized understanding of both biology, of both the physics and maths of it, of also the engineering aspects of it. So just doing a 4-year program or a 5-year program doesn't enable any student to get to a good biomedical engineer core company and bring out the potential he has and make innovations in this domain. Hence, if any student decides that he wants to go get into biomedical engineering, it is a long journey. One has to do a bachelor's degree, follow it up with a master's like an MS or an MTech, and preferably continue it with a PhD and finish a doctorate program. And once you finish a doctorate program in biomedical engineering, there are enough opportunities in India, in abroad, which will enable you to get into the core activity in biomedical engineering. But that is one side of the opportunities for biomedical engineers. The other opportunities which are there are those who want to get into the software. When I mean you do a PhD, I more mean for those who want to get opportunities in algorithms. For those who want to get into software, which you want to do software building for enabling a doctor, then the best opportunities are get into a computer science program but do a master's, get experience in 1 or 2 development companies, then move into core companies where they build software for biomedical engineering. You wouldn't, the students would not be able to get into core algorithm work, but they would at least be able to be in support function like building software for biomedical engineering, which is also opportunities. And coming to the third side of it, the hardware part of it, one needs to have exposure in mechanical engineering, one needs to have exposure in electronics and electrical ECE, electronic communication engineering, and again have specialization there. And then they can come up with opportunities to build hardware which can be used for diagnosing or treating the solutions for biomedical areas. So hardware also there are opportunities, and that comes from mechanical and electrical electronics background. Software has opportunities coming from computer science and information technology background, and algorithms have opportunities coming from biomedical engineering. But all these three need to be done up to the extent of minimum a master's and preferably a PhD. And then these students will be able to bring in this cross interdisciplinary activity and help promote newer technologies and innovations in biomedical engineering.
So you mentioned about the importance of research in the field of biomedical engineering. And what are the major research institutions that we have in India to get good explosion in this particular area?
Very interesting question and very relevant question, and very important for students to be aware where they can look out to get to the right certification and degrees for getting a career in biomedical engineering. The foremost of those, I should admit I have only minimal exposure. I spent a couple of years in academics, but whatever I am aware of I can share with. The foremost of those which I have seen is the Stanford Biodesign, which is a program done in collaboration with All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, in Delhi, where they enable doctors and also engineers to form a team and work on one of the forefront of the problems. And that exactly has this concept of need identification, immersion in a hospital, where AIIMS gives them the opportunity to work, for an engineer to work in a hospital along with a doctor, look what are the problems they face in the hospital, and then come back and discover solutions. And this is an internship program. There is also a fellow, a Stanford Biodesign fellow, where you spend 6 months here in AIIMS, and then they take you to 6 months to Stanford, and they train you on what is this biodesign process, teach you how to identify needs and how to build solution. And they put engineers and doctors in one team and come up with a solution. I have a couple of my friends who have done this program and being very effective in building the next generation products in biomedical engineering. The other institutions which I am also aware in my interactions through my work is one fantastic group in IIT Madras. They have started a group which is called Healthcare Technology Innovation Park, HTIC Innovation Center, where they are doing cutting edge work on biomedical products, hardware, and also algorithms and software that they can build. And they in-house build those customized solutions based on various needs that they see around in the hospitals, and build those, test those, and then launch them in the market. A fantastic group, lot of opportunities for biomedical engineers to get their hands on directly in the hardware, build algorithms, and also deploy the solutions in the market. So a very good research group is in IIT Madras, in HTIC, which is like an offshoot of IIT Madras. The third major institution which I also know and I have interacted with is IIIT in Hyderabad, which has a very good group on computer vision image processing research, and they are also building a lot of interesting algorithms. They are particularly in the algorithm space and doing cutting edge research and algorithms in vision, and enabling medical companies use those algorithms for their products. Then I also know a couple of colleagues from IIT Kharagpur, IIT Bombay, who have all worked in collaboration with hospitals and also working on biomedical space, but the specific groups I would not be aware of. But more and more we see institutions having the synergy between hospital and engineering institutions having in one place. Then engineers can go to the hospitals, collect data, work along with specialists. Doctors can come to the engineers and share their problems, and that helps bring in more solutions which can be discovered in short duration.
Okay, so now you are with industry and leading a team exploring the healthcare technology to the leading market. So what is the future of biomedical engineering?
Okay. This is very difficult to predict what is in store for the future, but one can always get a guesswork to say what are the things that we can see in the coming years, at least in the next decade or so. One of the key things which is changing in the medical domain and in the biomedical engineering spectra is targeted therapies. And in fact, as recently as a week back, there was research groups trying to look at targeted medicines which deliver the medicine only to a particular pain location or a disease location and doesn't affect any other place. A simple example which was quoted in that research is that we take an antibody or an antibiotic and then it slows your entire system, because you become weak, you become lethargic, because the system medicine gets delivered to the whole body. It is not going to one location, but they are having ways and means now to deliver that antibiotic only to the need location. So you don't feel lethargic. The thing which needs the medicine, gets cure. Rest of the things are not affected at all. So this targeted medicines is going to be the next wave in biomedical engineering, where people research mechanisms to deliver either a therapy, which could be radiation or chemical, or a medicine which goes and only cures the respective location and doesn't disturb anything else. The same is also looked and explored in surgery, and a lot of steps have already happened, and the arena is called keyhole surgeries. So you can make a hole which is like a pinhole or a small hole, go through that hole and then do the corrective surgery, and the recovery time is very quick. People come back, go do a surgery and come back home in 1 day or 2 days. And this is already in practice. I am not talking of what is going to come, but more and more such keyhole or pinhole based surgeries would be also the next trend that we see. The third major trend which we also see is technologies which will enable people to get the required care being at home, right? One of the major problems that we see is that when a patient goes to a hospital, he goes with one disease and comes back with 5 disease. And so does he go for a cure, or is he going to get more disease? So the pattern there is changing by having dedicated doctors visit patients at home on demand basis and give you cure at home. And that has already started out. The e-commerce space, the IT space, the cloud is all enabling this, so that doctors can be booked on an appointment via your e-commerce portal. Payment can happen over it. Appointment can be booked via a web portal. Doctor visits you at a given point of time. You may have to pay a little extra, but you get care sitting at your home, and you don't have to worry about going to a hospital, waiting in endless queues and so on. So that is also a paradigm shift which is happening, which we see care coming to a home rather than you going to a hospital. The last shift which is also happening is a completion of a care cycle. What does mean by a completion of a care cycle? You don't go to a hospital to get heart treatment. You go to another hospital to get your brain scan done and so on. So the concept is now of a health city, where you go to, if at all, if you need to go to a hospital, if you can get it done in home, it is good. If you want to go to a hospital, they take care of you end to end. And holistic medicine is the era where they say you want A, B, C, D, which includes multiple organs that needs to be looked into, or multiple experts have to come to give a solution. Everything can be given under one umbrella. And those are the health city concepts, which kind of integrate all the modalities, all the specialities under one roof. And finally, last but not the least, we also have technologies to enable people not to fall sick. That is the best that can happen. Why talk about curing? So these are technologies which will help people eat right, which will help people do more physical activity, which will help people not to fall sick by taking care of their vitals, monitoring their vitals. That is going to be the next era, where you have apps which are built on mobile phones, sensors which will tell you when you should be doing your activity, counting how much of physical activity you do, and help you that you never go to a hospital at all and stay fit. And I really envision a future where the hospitals don't need to exist. You can as well be the person who monitors your health and take care of your health yourself.
That is very interesting and very informative. And thank you very much for your valuable time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.